This is the Q&A video for 500,000 subscribers. Thank you to all that have supported me this far. You've asked your questions and I'm here to answer some of them. And yeah, let's dive in. Project number 5 asked, you've mentioned your love for a lot of the UK post-hardcore bands from the 2000s before. If you have to give people 3 bands from this scene to listen to, who would they be? The bands that instantly come to mind are Ruben, who I've said in the past are like one of my favourite bands. They released 3 albums. They're all essential from like 2004 to 2007, 2008. Hell is for Heroes. Their first album, The Neon Handshake, is some of the best UK post-hardcore. Some of the members were in a Brit rock band from the 90s called Symposium. And then they made Hell is for Heroes and they got like a top 40 single, which Ruben referenced in one of their songs.
Hell is for heroes. They got another single.
Because they were jealous.
My contemporaries, a top 40 smash, no doubt.
And lastly, obviously there's Biffy Clyro. Biffy Clyro you might have heard of because, you know, they're headlining Download and doing arena tours. But what you need to listen to is the first 3 albums. Blackened Sky, Vertigo of Bliss, my favourite, and what's the last one? Infinity Land. They're all essential. They're all this kind of very kind of caustic, heavy, distorted. It's like bits of Mineral and bits of Deftones all mashed together. And it's like this British one of those. Check it out. Kosta Jovanovic asked, what do you think about the 1001 songs you must hear before you die selection? I think with a list of that size, it's good for an overview. It's not necessarily gonna be specific on certain genres. Like, I think there's like a handful of songs from prog. Anything outside of the Anglosphere is kind of lacking. Like, there's some weird selections in there. Like, most lists, even of that size, would have 1 Sex Pistols song. They have 2. I think they could have got away with just Anarchy in the UK without having Holidays in the Sun. And also alternative, there's, you know, the big singles and nothing below that. There's 1 replacement song. Is there 1 song by the Pixies? But yeah, like, it is what it is. It's a good starting point on your voyage to listening to songs, I guess. Monique Nielsen asked, I'm interested to know some of your favourite album art selections. I think the thing is that a lot of album art is like eternally linked with the music inside. So often I kind of can't separate the two. Most of my favourite album art is from albums I really love. So the Replacements' Let It Be. It's like this iconic image of them on the rooftop. But do I like it because it's a nicely composed image? Or is it because it's one of my favourite albums? I don't know. But I guess there's albums I like slightly less musically. So like Jimmy Eat World's Static Prevails. Not the best Jimmy Eat World album, but I think probably the most striking cover. Just because you look at it and it's this very kind of alien image. And then you look at it from a different angle and it becomes more earthly, more real. Because yeah, like what it is just some stools that have been covered in snow, but because it's at a slightly different angle. But there's also stuff like the Holy Bible by the Manics, which is a really striking image. I think I remember that Richie reached out to the artist to get permission, and she was like, yeah, like you can use it for free. Like, I'll have to double check that, and maybe I'll delete this part if that's not true. Todd AFU has asked, what is the best and worst Beatles songs? So for best, I'm going to go with For No One off Revolver. Well, you know, it's off Revolver. It's off one of the greatest albums of all time. But it's also this kind of very sparse, like heartbroken ode to a relationship that has just ended. It's the best parts of Yesterday and Eleanor Rigby. Like this kind of loneliness that just pervades the whole track. And it's just great. I want to say there's like some kind of horn bit just before the end. Some brass bit. Just kills you. And for worst song, it has to be Maxwell's Silver Hammer with its clanging percussion, which is just the worst thing on Abbey Road, which is otherwise perfect. It's this flawless masterpiece, marred by Paul McCartney's composition. Jesse DeStasio asked, 4 years into the 2020s, what do you think is the most consequential music release so far? That is the thing about hindsight. Like, I can answer now, and any answer I put come 2030 when they do 2029 when they do the end of decade lists, anything that might have been important now may have been forgotten. So like something like Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo, one of the biggest songs of the last 4 years, maybe one of the most emotive midweights of all time. But will it be consequential? Like, has it influenced anyone? I mean, I guess it has. Like, if we didn't have Olivia and Driver's License, we wouldn't have Sabrina Carpenter in the charts currently. Depending on your point of view, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Just because of how things are currently in 2024, I'm gonna have to say Brat. I've been with Charlie since You Ha 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 back in like 2011, checking in on her every new release. I was there before Boom Clap, and now she's finally got a number one on the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, it was mostly down to Billy. I mean, to a point. But you know, this is an artist who, you know, has been slugging away trying to be the perfect pop star and becoming this, you know, indie pop darling. And she's finally broken through in like a mainstream way, which is like completely unheard of. Plus also the Kamala Harris thing, Kamala being Brat. Yeah, like I don't see anything else being more consequential than that. Plus also Guess is a very rare Billboard Hot 100 song that has lesbian themes, which, you know, for this year, very big on lesbian pop. So yeah, like I think it's very consequential to what will come after. Plus it, you know, it just slams. Zombie Links asked, what's the coolest fact you've learnt researching a video? I think one of the coolest things is that It's a Sin by Pet Shop Boys was inspired, or at least the driving rhythm was inspired by ZZ Top and their Eliminator album. This kind of driving like hard rock is kind of implemented in their spiritual synth pop. And that's why it's so impactful. But it's just such a weird collision you wouldn't think of until you heard it out loud. Unicorn Power asked, how do you discover new music? I know you always go out of your way to include current artists in your videos, which is much appreciated. I think a lot of it is like social medias. So following Kerrang, Enemy, Pitchfork, and kind of all these kind of sites, which are, you know, gradually decreasing in number as they're getting snapped up by corporations. But they're still championing new music. And as well as Spotify has good discovery features. But yeah, it's mostly just the press. The press still exists and they're still championing new music. Cinematic Universe asked, what's the earliest song you can remember enjoying, loving, noticing? By which I mean, what's the song that you first actively wanted to listen to? So I remember, I guess I must have been about 5 years old. Meatloaf was at number one on Top of the Pops with I'd Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. And it had like this video, which I don't think at the time I even realized was based on Beauty and the Beast. But like this song was just so big, so theatrical. Exactly the kind of thing that, you know, catches your ear as a 5-year-old. If you heard it as a teenager, you'd be like, this is too overblown. This is too cheesy. But 5 years old, this is the best music you possibly listen to. I think that was my intro to music appreciation. Jablia asks what my favorite Canadian band or song is. I think my favorite Canadian band is probably Tegan and Sarah. The Con is one of the best albums of the 2000s, easily. Super sweet pop harmonies, their acoustic arrangements, really great. There's stuff like Back in Your Head, Call It Off, and 19. I think on Back in Your Head, I think it's got members of like AFI playing on it, who admittedly are not Canadian. I think that's right. Again, I will check and delete this if I'm wrong. But I think like my favorite song by a Canadian artist is Underwhelmed by Sloan. Like the lyrics are really good. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head. Yeah, like it's weird because it's a power pop song, but at least to me, with, you know, my limited Canadian band knowledge, it's kind of the closest thing they had to grunge. But it was kind of stuff like that kind of snarky alternative rock that came in the late 90s. It was kind of prototype for that. Hidbid asked, what's your favorite recent chart pop song? Depending on how I edit this. I've already talked about Charlie and Brat, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Like, I really like the Sabrina Carpenter singles she's released this year. Both Espresso and Please Please Please. They're kind of reminiscent of like 70s pop. And it's just, yeah, just insanely sugary, sweet, catchy fun. Olivia Rodrigo released Guts last year, and every single one of those singles is just amazing. Also kind of referencing 90s alt rock, which is, you know, one of my favorite eras. But yeah, fuck. Bad Idea, right? Just amazing. Mitch Lane and Ali Halikan asked, what are some of your favorite video games? I really like the Soul series. Elden Ring, one of the best games of the last few years. I have played it way too much. Unfortunately, several videos have been held back by me playing Elden Ring. Also like all the Zeldas. The Souls games are basically Zelda, but you know, a bit more grown up. Harrison Renshaw of Alpha Media asked, what's a video of yours that you think is underrated? Either by views or it just didn't get the love you hoped it might. There's a quadrilogy of videos on Brit rock that have all done really badly. Like, I think only the one on Skunk Anansie has more than 100,000 views, which is below average. But yeah, like there's a video on Feeder, Placebo, Manic Street Preachers, and Skunk Anansie. And yeah, they've all done really badly. And I think it's because Brit rock as a movement was very much UK music magazine Kerrang champion thing, and very much did not break through in the US. You might have heard some of their songs, but yeah, they're very much a UK based thing, and so very much limiting the amount of people who care about those videos, which is a shame because, you know, they all produce great music. I really like all of those videos, especially the Mannix one, which the Mannix one also has some issues with some very violent imagery in the video, so I think that didn't help it at all, but it's a shame that more people didn't watch those. Mortal Trance asked, any chance for some more videos on hip-hop or electronic dance music in the near future? Potentially. I think the thing is, it's very much not my wheelhouse. They're musics I appreciate, but they're very much not what I listen to day to day. So more likely there's going to be rock and pop videos more often. Not to say that there won't be, but they're the ones I'm drawn to, those stories. FC Demeter has asked, how do you know which bands are an influence to the band or movement that you feature in a particular video? Like with most things in my videos, it is due to research. Like a lot of bands do just say out loud which bands they were influenced by, and if not, like there's bands normally do covers, and when a band covers a song, the sound they're trying to approximate is pretty much that thing. So with the Sex Pistols, their early covers are stuff like the Small Faces and the Stooges. I don't think they did New York Dolls, and yeah, like that's pretty much it. Those are the kind of bands that they're drawing upon. If you look into it, it's not that hard. Miserable the Kid asked, what would you say is the difference between how genre became genre versus how genre became pop? With the genre videos like how punk became punk, there's very much a point where it becomes the epitome of that genre, which is Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols. That's kind of the point. Even though, you know, New Rose was before that, where punk it exists in the world. Whereas with the pop videos, like Industrial Becomes Pop, it's very much a point where it's at its most commercial. So basically it's the point of commerciality as opposed to epitomizing the genre. It's the most mainstream aspect of the genre. Cole asks, what does the research process for a Trash Theory video look like? It normally takes about 3 weeks now. It used to take 2 weeks, but now the videos are getting longer, more intense. So yeah, the first week is normally tracking down books and magazines that aren't online. So whether that's Kindle, Amazon, eBay, finding those, as well as documentaries that might not be online. Then the second week is basically going through all the material, basically trying to read every single thing about this particular artist. The genre videos are slightly different, but this is the main ones I'm doing. And then by the end of the second week, I should have a script together, which I'll revise once I realize if there's anything slightly different. But it's sent to the proofreader. And then the last week is putting it together edit-wise. But yeah, 2 weeks for the research, pretty much. Samantha Garner asks, what's the most surprising or thought-provoking thing that you've uncovered in your research for videos? I think the thing that definitely hit me hardest was when looking into Small Town Boy by Bronski Beat. So Bronski Beat released Small Town Boy, it was a massive hit. And then they headlined Pits and Perverts, which is a concert for the miners. Both homosexuals and miners in the 1980s were barraged by Thatcher, and so they kind of joined together, which is just this amazing thing. The lesbians and gays earned over $5,000 for the miners and the miners' strike. And because of that, for Pride the next year, over 1,000 miners and their families showed up to the march. And I didn't go into that in the video, but it's just the power of people together, fighting for a joint cause. Michael Utel asks, do you consider yourself a Swifty? Are you a fan of hers? Is there an album you prefer of hers over the others? I don't consider myself a Swifty because stan culture is pretty toxic, but I do like quite a lot of her music. My favourite album of hers is 1989 because it's got Blank Space on it. It's got Out of the Woods. Out of the Woods is a big song. Butch Rosser asks, what do you think is the most underrated album of the 90s? So my answer to that is Scream Dracula Scream by Rocket from the Crypt, which I've been listening to again because of the Ants video and, you know, the influence, chain of influence. Scream Dracula Scream is pretty much the prototype for the new rock revolution, just like 5 years earlier. But it's pretty much there. It's got all the kind of retro rock and roll, garage rock kind of thing, but like about 5 years too early. Daniel Newfield asks, is there an artist or bands who you are fully unfamiliar with before making a video on them, whose music has made it into your regular listening rotation? I wasn't completely unaware of Slowdive before doing the video earlier this year. But yeah, since then, oh man, Souvlaki, man. I've been listening a lot since then. And every time one of their songs comes on, I'm kind of almost bitten with the sweet heartache of that album whenever When the Sun Hits comes on, or Dagger. Dagger keeps on coming on. Very barren and unforgiving song, but oh man, it's great. The Virtual Traveller asked, which other music curators do you watch? Any that you avoid? I don't think I avoid anyone. On occasion, watch Needle Drop, but it's mostly like Mike the Snare, Polyphonic. And there's also a couple of podcasts I listen to. There's 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, which I think ended about 6 months ago. 120 episodes of that are great. I miss that dearly. And also Krista Makes a Podcast, which is a bit more punk focused, punk alternative, and yeah, it's about normally the artist's biggest hit and how they wrote it, and there's a lot of insight there as well. And that was it. If your question wasn't answered, better luck next time. But thank you for all the wonderful comments. I couldn't have gotten this far without you, literally. This is very much a fan-driven milestone, and I'll see you real soon for what comes next.